I remember the exact second my world stopped making sense. It happened at my husband's funeral. The priest was still speaking when my phone vibrated in my hand. I almost ignored it. Funerals are not the place for messages. But something inside me told me to look. And when I did, I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. The message said only 5 words. I'm alive. I'm not inside. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Because the coffin being lowered into the grave at that exact moment was supposed to contain my husband. My name is Laura Bennett. I am 46 years old. And until that day I believed I understood my life. I believed I understood my family. I believed I knew the man I had been married to for 22 years. But standing beside that grave, holding my phone with shaking hands, I realized something terrible. Either someone was playing a cruel game with me, or the man buried in that coffin was not my husband. And the worst part? The next message would tell me something even more disturbing. Don't trust the children. Even now, weeks later, saying those words out loud makes my stomach twist. But to understand what happened, you need to know how everything began. Because Daniel Bennett was not the kind of man people expected to have secrets. He was quiet, careful, predictable. The kind of man who followed routines so strictly that you could set a clock by him. Every morning at 6:30 he woke up. At 6:45 he made coffee. At 7:10 he left the house. 22 years of marriage, and he almost never broke that routine. We met when I was 23. I was working as a receptionist in a dental office. Daniel came in one afternoon with a broken tooth and an embarrassed smile. He was shy but kind, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. 3 months later we were dating. 2 years later we were married. Our life together was simple. Not glamorous. Not exciting. But stable. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland. 2 bedrooms at first, then later we added another room when Emma was born. Emma came first. Then 3 years later, Tyler. Daniel loved being a father. At least that is what I always believed. He read bedtime stories every night when the kids were little. He attended school events. He fixed broken toys and built tree houses in the backyard. From the outside, we looked like a perfect family. And maybe for many years we really were. But when I look back now, I see small things I ignored. Little moments that didn't make sense. Secrets hidden in ordinary days. It started 4 days before the funeral. That morning seemed completely normal. Daniel woke up at 6:30. He made coffee like always. He sat at the kitchen table reading the news on his phone, while I packed Emma's lunch. Tyler had already left for college classes. Emma was 17 and finishing her last year of high school. Daniel looked tired that morning. Not sick. Just distracted. I remember asking if everything was okay. He smiled and said he just had a lot of work to finish that week. That was the last real conversation we ever had. Before leaving for work, he kissed my cheek. He said he would be home for dinner. I remember watching him walk down the driveway toward his car. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing felt like goodbye. But that night he never came home. At 9:30 the police knocked on our door. 2 officers stood there with serious expressions that immediately made my heart sink. They asked if I was Laura Bennett. When I said yes, one of them gently told me there had been an accident. Daniel's car had crashed on a quiet highway about 30 miles outside town. They said the collision was severe. They said he died instantly. The next 48 hours passed like a blur. Hospital paperwork. Phone calls to relatives. Friends bringing food we barely touched. Emma cried almost nonstop. Tyler became strangely quiet. He spent most of his time in his room. I thought he was grieving in his own way. I didn't question it. Looking back now, I wish I had. The funeral was scheduled quickly. Daniel's brother helped arrange everything. A small cemetery outside town where several members of his family were already buried. The weather that morning was gray and cold. The kind of sky that feels heavy, like the world itself is mourning. About 20 people attended. Family members. A few co-workers. 2 neighbors. Everyone dressed in dark coats and quiet sadness. Emma stood close beside me, holding my arm tightly. Tyler stood a few steps away with his hands in his pockets, staring at the ground. The priest spoke softly while the coffin rested above the open grave. I tried to listen, But my mind kept drifting. 22 years of memories moved through my head. Vacations, birthday parties, ordinary dinners at the kitchen table. All of it suddenly felt fragile, temporary. The priest finished his prayer. 2 workers slowly began lowering the coffin into the ground. That was the moment my phone vibrated. Once, then again. At first I ignored it, but the vibration continued. A strange feeling crept into my chest. I pulled the phone from my coat pocket. Unknown number. One message. I'm alive. I'm not in the coffin. My entire body went cold. I read the message again. And again. The words refused to make sense. My hands started shaking as I typed a reply. Who is this? The response came almost instantly. I can't say. They are watching us. A wave of fear ran through me. Watching us? I slowly lifted my eyes from the phone and looked around the cemetery. People stood quietly near the grave. Daniel's brother talking softly to his wife. My sister wiping tears from her face. A few co-workers standing near the trees. No one seemed to notice me. Another vibration. Another message. Don't trust the children. My breath stopped. Don't trust the children. My eyes moved automatically toward Emma and Tyler. Emma was crying softly. Tyler stood still and silent. They looked exactly like 2 grieving children. But suddenly I felt something strange. Something I couldn't explain. A small seed of doubt planted deep inside my mind. I typed another message. If this is a joke, stop now. 30 seconds passed. Then my phone vibrated again. I will contact you tonight. Do not tell anyone. Trust no one. I tried calling the number. The call failed immediately. Number unavailable. The coffin reached the bottom of the grave. Workers began covering it with soil. Each shovel of dirt made a hollow sound that echoed through the quiet cemetery. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, my heart racing. Emma hugged me gently. She said we should go home. Tyler was already walking toward the car. As we left the cemetery, a single terrifying thought repeated inside my mind again and again. What if the message was telling the truth? What if Daniel Bennett was still alive? And if he was enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Then who was buried in that coffin? That night I would receive another message. A message that would force me to start asking questions. Questions that would slowly reveal something dark hidden inside my own family. And by the time I discovered the truth, it would already be too late. Was I right or wrong? Comment below. That night I would receive another message. A message that would force me to start asking questions. Questions that would slowly reveal something dark hidden inside my own family. When we arrived home after the funeral, the house felt different. Empty in a way I had never felt before. For 22 years Daniel's presence had filled that house. Even when he was quiet, even when he was just sitting in the living room reading something on his phone, I could always feel him there. Now the silence felt heavy. Emma went straight to her room. She said she had a headache and wanted to lie down. Tyler walked into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and stared inside for a long time without taking anything. Neither of them said much during the drive home. I assumed they were grieving. I was grieving too. But that message on my phone kept echoing in my mind. I'm alive. I'm not in the coffin. And the second message. Don't trust the children. I tried to push the thought away. It had to be some kind of sick prank. Maybe someone who heard about the accident. Maybe someone who wanted to scare me. But something about the timing bothered me. The message arrived at the exact moment the coffin was being lowered. That could not be a coincidence. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were still shaking. Tyler closed the refrigerator and leaned against the counter. You okay, Mom? He asked. His voice sounded calm. Almost too calm. I nodded. I'm just tired. He studied my face for a moment, then shrugged. Yet today was rough. Something about the way he said it felt strange. Not cold. Just distant. Tyler had always been a quiet boy growing up. Even as a child he kept his emotions hidden. When Emma cried easily, Tyler stayed silent. Still, today something felt different. I forced myself to act normal. Did you eat anything today? I asked him. He shook his head. Not really. I'll make something later, I said. But neither of us moved. The house remained quiet. Finally, Tyler pushed away from the counter. I'm going to my room. He walked down the hallway without another word. I stood alone in the kitchen listening to his footsteps disappear. A few minutes later, Emma came downstairs slowly. Her eyes were red from crying. She wrapped her arms around me and held me tightly. I can't believe Dad is gone, she whispered. Hearing those words almost broke me. I hugged her back and felt tears filling my own eyes. I know, I said softly. We'll get through this. She nodded but didn't look convinced. After a while, she went back upstairs. Soon the house became completely silent again. Night slowly settled outside. The sky darkened and the wind picked up against the windows. I sat alone in the living room staring at my phone on the coffee table, waiting. Part of me felt foolish. Another part felt terrified. What if another message came? And what if it really was Daniel? At 8:30 my phone finally vibrated. My heart jumped so suddenly that I almost knocked the table over reaching for it. Unknown number again. One new message. I'm glad you didn't tell anyone. My throat tightened. I quickly typed back. Who are you? A few seconds later the reply came. You know who I am. My fingers trembled as I stared at the screen. No, I don't, I wrote. There was a longer pause this time. Nearly a full minute. Then another message appeared. Laura, listen carefully. Seeing my name made my chest tighten. Very few people had my number. Even fewer would send a message like that. I typed one word. Daniel. 3 dots appeared on the screen. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally the message came. I can't explain everything yet. My entire body felt cold. It wasn't a direct answer. But it wasn't a denial either. I felt dizzy sitting there on the couch. If you're Daniel, I typed slowly, prove it. For several seconds there was no reply. Then my phone vibrated again. Your first car was a blue Honda Civic. You cried the first time you scratched it on a mailbox. My breath caught in my throat. That was true. But I had never told anyone that story except Daniel. Another message came immediately after. You still hide chocolate in the top kitchen cabinet behind the cereal box. My eyes widened. That was also true. I had been doing that for years. And only Daniel ever knew. My hands started shaking harder now. Where are you? I typed. The reply came quickly. I can't tell you. Why? They are watching. Those same words again. My mind raced with questions. Who were they? Why couldn't he say where he was? And if he was alive, then who had died in that crash? Another message appeared. You must be careful. About what? This time the answer took longer. When it finally appeared, my stomach dropped. Emma and Tyler. I stared at the words in disbelief. What about them? The typing dots appeared. Then stopped. Then appeared again. Finally the message came. I told you already. Don't trust the children. My chest tightened with anger now. Stop saying that. I wrote. They are our children. A full minute passed before the next message. I know. That's why it's dangerous. I felt my heart pounding loudly in my ears. What does that mean? I typed. But there was no answer. The typing dots appeared briefly, then disappeared. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. No more messages came. I tried calling the number again. The call failed instantly. Just like before. Number unavailable. I sat there staring at the phone for a long time. My mind spinning. Part of me wanted to run upstairs and wake Emma and Tyler, and tell them everything. Another part of me remembered the warning. Do not tell anyone. Trust no one. Especially the children. The thought felt impossible. How could I not trust my own kids? I had raised them, protected them, loved them every day of their lives. And yet, something strange had happened earlier at the cemetery. Something I hadn't fully noticed at the time. When the coffin was being lowered, Tyler wasn't looking at it. He had been looking at me, watching me very carefully. At the time I thought he was worried about me. Now I wasn't so sure. A sudden sound upstairs broke my thoughts. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Someone was walking in the hallway. I looked toward the staircase. The house was completely dark except for the small lamp beside me. Then Tyler appeared at the top of the stairs. He looked down at me. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he asked quietly, "Mom, who were you texting?" My heart skipped a beat. "I wasn't texting anyone," I said quickly. He tilted his head slightly. "Your phone keeps lighting up." I forced a small smile. "Just messages from relatives." He stared at me for a few seconds longer. Something about his expression made me uneasy. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay." But he didn't go back to his room. Instead he asked something that made a cold wave move through my chest. "Mom, do you think it's strange Dad died so suddenly?" I swallowed. "Accidents happen," I said. Tyler didn't answer immediately. He just stood there watching me. Then he said something that made the room feel colder. "Yeah. But sometimes accidents aren't accidents." And at that moment, I realized something in my own house might be far more dangerous than the messages on my phone. Was I right or wrong? Comment below. Tyler's words hung in the air like a shadow that refused to move. But sometimes accidents aren't accidents. For a moment I didn't know how to respond. My mind was already racing because of the messages I had received. Now hearing my own son say something like that made my chest feel tight. I tried to keep my voice calm. "What do you mean?" I asked. Tyler shrugged slightly and leaned against the hallway wall upstairs. "I don't know," he said. "Just feels strange." His tone sounded casual, but his eyes were focused directly on me, almost like he was studying my reaction. I forced a small tired smile. "It was a terrible accident," I said. "The police explained everything." Tyler nodded slowly. "Yeah, they did." But something about the way he said those words made me uncomfortable. After a few seconds he turned and walked back toward his room. "Good night, Mom," he said. "Good night," I replied quietly. His bedroom door closed a moment later. The house fell silent again. I sat there on the couch for several minutes without moving. My phone rested in my hand, dark and quiet now. The messages had stopped. But the feeling of unease inside me had only grown stronger. Eventually I stood up and walked into the kitchen. The clock on the microwave showed 9:47 p.m. Normally Daniel would be sitting in the living room watching television at that hour. Sometimes he would call me from the couch and ask if we had any snacks left. The memory made my chest ache. But another thought quickly replaced it. What if he really was alive? The idea still sounded impossible. Yet the messages knew things only Daniel could know. Very personal things. Things no stranger could guess. I opened the top kitchen cabinet slowly. Behind the cereal box was the small chocolate bar I had hidden 2 days earlier. Exactly where the message had said it would be. A cold chill ran through my body. I closed the cabinet and leaned against the counter, trying to think clearly. If Daniel was alive, then the body in that coffin belonged to someone else. But whose body? And why would anyone fake Daniel's death? My thoughts were interrupted by another vibration from my phone. I looked down quickly. A new message. My heart jumped. But this one came from Emma. "Mom, are you awake?" I exhaled slowly and typed back. "Yes." A few seconds later another message appeared. "Can I come downstairs?" "Of course," I wrote. A moment later I heard her bedroom door open upstairs. Her footsteps moved slowly down the staircase. She walked into the kitchen wearing one of Daniel's old hoodies. The sleeves were too long for her hands. Her eyes still looked red from crying. "I can't sleep," she said softly. I nodded. "Me neither." She sat at the kitchen table and rested her head in her hands. For a few minutes neither of us spoke. Then she looked up at me. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Her voice dropped slightly. "Do you think Dad was hiding something from us?" The question caught me completely off guard. "What do you mean?" I asked. Emma hesitated. "I don't know exactly." She stared down at the table as she spoke. "But the last few weeks, he seemed different." I felt a small knot form in my stomach. "Different how?" "He was nervous," she said. "Like he was worried about something." I thought back to that last morning at breakfast. Daniel had looked distracted, tired, but I had assumed it was just work stress. Emma continued speaking. "Last Tuesday I saw him in the garage talking on the phone." So, I said gently. He stopped talking the moment he saw me. That detail made my stomach tighten. What did he say? Emma shook her head. I only heard one sentence. What sentence? She looked up at me, her expression uncertain. He said, "It's already too late to stop it." The words sent a strange chill down my spine. Too late to stop what? Before I could ask another question, my phone vibrated again on the counter. Both Emma and I looked down at it. Unknown number. My heart started pounding again. I quickly grabbed the phone before Emma could see the screen clearly. "Who is it?" she asked. "Just spam," I said quickly. But my hands were already shaking as I opened the message. It was from the same number. The same number that claimed to be Daniel. The message was short. "Are you alone?" My pulse raced. I typed carefully. "Yes." The reply came instantly. "Listen to me very carefully." A cold tension spread through my chest. Another message followed. "I don't have much time." Emma was watching me now. "Mom, are you sure that's spam?" "Yes," I said quickly. I forced a calm smile. "You know how these messages are." She didn't look convinced. But she didn't push further. Meanwhile, another message appeared on my phone. "You must check Daniel's office tomorrow." My breath caught. Office. Daniel worked as an accountant in a small firm downtown. Why? I typed. Several seconds passed before the answer came. Because that's where everything started. My heart beat faster. What started? The typing dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally the message came. The mistake. Before I could reply again, Emma stood up from the table. "I'm going back upstairs," she said quietly. "I'll try to sleep." I nodded. "Good night." "Good night, Mom." She walked slowly up the stairs and disappeared into the hallway. Once her door closed, I looked back down at my phone. Another message had arrived. And this one made my blood run cold. "You need to hurry." "Why?" I typed. The answer appeared almost immediately. "Because if they find out you're asking questions." A few seconds passed before the next line appeared. "They won't let you live long enough to find the truth." My fingers felt numb holding the phone. "What truth?" I wrote. But this time there was no reply. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Then 5. The messages had stopped again. I stared at the dark screen while a terrible thought slowly formed in my mind. Tomorrow I would go to Daniel's office. I would search for answers. But something deep inside me warned that once I started looking, I might discover secrets far more dangerous than I was ready to face. And the most frightening possibility of all was that the people Daniel warned me about might already be inside my own house. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. That thought stayed with me the entire night. The idea that danger might already be inside my house made sleep almost impossible. I went upstairs around midnight, but even after lying in bed for nearly an hour, my eyes refused to close. Every small sound in the house felt louder than usual. The ticking of the hallway clock, the quiet movement of wind outside, the faint creaking of the floorboards. Normally those sounds felt comforting. They were the sounds of a home that had been peaceful for more than 2 decades. But that night they felt different. Every sound made me wonder if someone else in the house was awake, watching, listening. At around 1:30 in the morning, I finally gave up trying to sleep. I got out of bed quietly and walked downstairs. The living room was dark except for a small light from the street outside shining through the window. I sat on the couch again and picked up my phone. Still no new messages. Part of me hoped the number would text again. Another part of me was afraid it would. I checked the number carefully this time. It was not saved in my contacts. I tried searching it online. Nothing. No name connected to it. No location. Just an empty number. Which made everything feel even stranger. At 2 in the morning, I finally fell asleep on the couch. The next thing I remember was sunlight coming through the living room window. I woke up suddenly, confused for a moment about where I was. Then everything rushed back. The funeral. The messages. The warning. Daniel's office. I checked my phone quickly. No new messages. The time was 7:18 a.m. Upstairs I could hear movement. Emma was getting ready for school. Tyler's door opened shortly after. I stood up and walked into the kitchen. Emma came downstairs first. She looked tired but calmer than the night before. "Morning," she said quietly. "Morning," I replied. She poured herself a glass of orange juice and sat at the table. Tyler came down a minute later. He looked exactly the same as always. Calm, quiet, observant. He opened the refrigerator again like he had the night before. For a moment none of us spoke. Finally Emma broke the silence. "I guess life just continues," she said. Her voice sounded strange saying those words so soon after Daniel's funeral. Tyler nodded slightly. "Yeah." I watched both of them carefully, trying to see something. Anything unusual. But they looked like two normal teenagers dealing with grief, which made Daniel's warning feel even harder to believe. Don't trust the children. How could that possibly make sense? Emma finished her juice and grabbed her backpack. "I should go," she said. "School starts early today." I hugged her before she left. "Text me when you get there." "I will." She walked out the front door, and a moment later I heard her car start. Now only Tyler and I remained in the kitchen. He closed the refrigerator and leaned against the counter again. "You going somewhere today?" he asked. The question surprised me. "Why?" He shrugged. "You look like you're thinking about something." I forced a small smile. "I have a few errands." He studied my face for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay." But again there was something about the way he watched me that felt strange. Like he was trying to read my thoughts. Finally he grabbed his keys. "I have a class at 10, he said. "I'll be back later." "Drive safe," I replied. A minute later the front door closed behind him. And suddenly the house was completely empty. For the first time since Daniel's death, I was alone. I stood in the kitchen for a long moment thinking. Then I made my decision. If there were answers, they were probably at Daniel's office. I grabbed my coat and car keys. The drive downtown took about 20 minutes. The streets looked normal. People walking to work. Coffee shops opening. Traffic moving slowly through intersections. Everything looked ordinary. But my mind was anything but calm. By the time I reached the small office building where Daniel worked, my hands were gripping the steering wheel tightly. The building looked exactly as it always had. 3 floors. Simple glass entrance. A small sign near the door showing the accounting firm's name. Daniel had worked there for nearly 12 years. I parked across the street and sat in the car for a moment, trying to calm my nerves. Then I walked inside. The receptionist looked up when I entered. Her name was Kelly. She had worked with Daniel for years. The moment she saw me, her face softened. "Oh, Laura. I'm so sorry." "Thank you," I said quietly. She walked around the desk and hugged me. "We were all shocked," she said. "He was such a good man." I nodded politely. "Can I see his office?" I asked. Kelly hesitated slightly. "I guess so." She walked me down the hallway. Daniel's office door was closed. Kelly opened it slowly. The room looked exactly as Daniel had left it. His desk. His computer. Files neatly stacked on the shelves. Seeing it all made my chest tighten again. "I'll leave you alone," Kelly said gently. "Thank you," I replied. She walked away, leaving me standing inside the quiet office. For a moment I just looked around, trying to imagine Daniel sitting here only a few days ago, working, answering emails, living a normal life. Then I remembered the message. "You must check Daniel's office tomorrow, because that's where everything started." I walked slowly to the desk. Most of the files looked ordinary. Tax documents, client records, nothing unusual. But then something caught my attention. One drawer of the desk was locked. That immediately felt strange. Daniel never locked his desk drawers at home. I tried pulling it open. It didn't move. I searched the desk carefully. Eventually I found a small key taped under the bottom of the drawer. My heart started beating faster. Why would Daniel hide a key like that? I inserted it slowly into the lock. The drawer opened. Inside were several folders. And one small black envelope. My hands felt slightly cold as I picked it up. There was only one word written on the front. Laura. My name. Daniel's handwriting. The moment I saw it, my heart began racing. He had left this for me. But why? And more importantly, what was inside? because deep down I already had a feeling. Whatever I was about to read was going to change everything I thought I knew about my husband. I stood there in Daniel's office staring at the black envelope with my name written on it. For a moment, I couldn't move. Seeing my name in his handwriting made something twist painfully inside my chest. Daniel had always written my name the same way, slightly slanted letters, careful and neat. There was no doubt about it. He had written this himself. But when? And why hide it in a locked drawer at his office? My hands felt cold as I slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a folded letter. Nothing else. Just one letter. I unfolded the paper carefully. The moment I saw the first line, my heart started beating faster. Laura, if you are reading this, it means something has already gone wrong. I stopped breathing for a second. Gone wrong. I continued reading. I wanted to tell you everything myself. But I couldn't risk it. Not while they were watching. I thought I had more time to fix my mistake, but now I'm not sure. My hands tightened around the paper. The same words from the messages echoed in my mind. They are watching. I kept reading. 3 months ago I discovered something at work that I was never supposed to see. A financial record that didn't belong in our system. At first I thought it was a mistake. But the deeper I looked, the worse it became. My eyes moved quickly across the page. Millions of dollars were being moved through fake accounts. The names were false, the companies were false, but the money was real. I tried to report it quietly, but someone noticed I was asking questions. A chill ran down my spine. I continued reading. I made the mistake of digging deeper. Now they know I saw everything. And once they know that, people like me don't simply walk away. My throat felt dry. People like me don't walk away. I looked around the empty office instinctively, as if someone might suddenly appear behind me. But the hallway outside remained quiet. I forced myself to keep reading. Laura, if anything happens to me, you need to be careful. The people involved in this are dangerous. They have money, influence, and connections everywhere. My fingers tightened around the letter. My mind immediately thought about the messages from the phone. Don't trust the children. But the letter said nothing about Emma or Tyler. At least not yet. I continued reading slowly. I tried to protect you and the kids by keeping everything secret. Maybe that was a mistake too. But I couldn't risk them targeting our family. My chest tightened slightly. Targeting our family. The next lines made my heart race even faster. There is a flash drive hidden inside the house. I hid it somewhere safe where only you could eventually find it. A flash drive? I kept reading quickly. Everything you need to understand what is happening is on that drive. Names. Transactions. Evidence. If anything happens to me, that drive becomes the only protection you have. My hands trembled slightly. Protection? Against who? Then I reached the final lines of the letter. If you're reading this, it means my plan didn't work the way I hoped. I wanted to expose them before they could silence me. Silence me. The words made my stomach twist. And then came the final sentence. Be careful who you trust. The danger may be closer than you think. The letter ended there. No signature. But I knew Daniel had written every word. I stood there in the quiet office staring at the paper. My heart felt like it was beating too fast. A hidden flash drive. Evidence of financial crimes. Dangerous people watching us. And Daniel had tried to expose them. But something about the situation still didn't make sense. If Daniel had been killed because of this, then why was I receiving messages claiming he was alive? Was someone pretending to be him? Or had he somehow escaped whatever happened? My phone suddenly vibrated in my hand. The sound made me jump. Another message. Unknown number. My heart pounded as I opened it. Did you find the letter? My breath caught instantly. Whoever was texting me knew exactly where I was. My fingers moved quickly. Yes. The reply came almost immediately. Good. My chest tightened. If you read it, then you understand part of the situation. Part of the situation. That meant there was more. Where are you? I typed again. Several seconds passed. Then the reply appeared. Not safe enough to say. My heart sank. If you're Daniel, prove it again, I wrote. A pause followed. Then another message appeared. In the summer of 2008 we got lost driving to the lake, and ended up eating dinner at a gas station. A small shock moved through me. That memory was real. A strange, random moment from our early marriage. Something no stranger could guess. My hands began shaking again. Daniel? I typed slowly. The typing dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. Finally the message came. I'm sorry. Those 2 words hit me harder than anything else. Sorry for what? Before I could type again, another message appeared. You must find the flash drive. I don't know where it is, I replied. The response came immediately. You do. I stared at the screen. What does that mean? Several seconds passed before the final message arrived. Think about the place you always said no one would ever look. My mind froze for a moment. The place no one would ever look. A memory suddenly surfaced in my mind. A small place in our house. A place connected to a joke Daniel and I had shared years ago. But before I could fully remember it, another sound broke my concentration. Footsteps in the hallway outside the office. Someone was approaching the door. My heart started racing. The footsteps stopped just outside. Then the door handle slowly began to turn. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. If the wrong person walked into this room, they might discover that I had just found Daniel's secret. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. The door handle moved slowly. For a split second my heart stopped. I quickly folded the letter and slid it back into the black envelope. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped it. The door opened. Kelly stepped inside. I released the breath I had been holding. Oh, sorry, she said gently when she saw me standing there. I didn't mean to scare you. I forced a small smile. It's okay. She looked around the office quietly. I just wanted to check if you needed anything. Her voice sounded sincere. But after everything I had read in Daniel's letter, I suddenly found myself questioning every person around me. Even Kelly. I'm fine, I said. I just wanted a few minutes in here. She nodded. Of course. For a moment she hesitated near the doorway. Then she spoke again. Daniel was working on something recently. Something big. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I asked carefully. Kelly shrugged slightly. He seemed stressed the last few weeks. That matched what Emma had said the night before. He stayed late almost every night, she continued, working on files I had never seen before. I tried to sound casual. Did he ever say what it was? Kelly shook her head. No. She paused, then added quietly, but he did ask me something strange last week. My pulse quickened. What? She leaned slightly closer, lowering her voice. He asked if anyone had been asking about him. A cold feeling moved through my chest. And I asked. I told him no. Kelly looked confused as she remembered the moment. But he seemed relieved when I said that. The pieces in my mind started moving faster. Daniel had been afraid someone was looking for him. Someone connected to the financial records he had discovered. I nodded slowly. Work can be stressful, I said. Kelly studied my face for a moment. Then she gave a small sympathetic smile. If you ever need anything from the office, just call me. Thank you, I said. She stepped back into the hallway and closed the door again. The moment she left, I quickly placed the envelope inside my purse. My heart was still beating fast. The message from the phone echoed again in my mind. Think about the place you always said no one would ever look. I stood in the quiet office trying to remember. A place no one would ever look. Daniel and I had joked about that many times over the years. But one memory stood out more clearly than the others. It happened almost 10 years ago. Emma had been 8. Tyler had been 11. One afternoon Emma had hidden her birthday money somewhere in the house, and then forgotten where she put it. The entire family spent nearly 2 hours searching. We looked in drawers, closets, kitchen cabinets, every possible place. But we couldn't find it anywhere. Finally Daniel started laughing. He said something I still remembered clearly. If you want to hide something in this house where nobody will ever look, put it in the old toolbox in the garage. At the time it was just a joke. That toolbox had been sitting in the corner of the garage for years. Rusty, heavy, filled with random old screws and broken tools. No one ever opened it. Not even Daniel. The memory hit me like a small electric shock. The toolbox. My heart started beating faster again. Could that be where he hid the flash drive? I looked around the office one more time. Nothing else seemed unusual. The drawer still held the other folders, but they appeared to be normal work documents. If the flash drive existed, it wasn't here, which meant it had to be at home. I quickly left the office. Kelly waved from the reception desk as I passed. "Take care, Laura." "You too," I replied. Outside, the air felt colder than before. I walked quickly to my car and sat behind the steering wheel. My hands rested on the wheel as my mind raced. If the flash drive was really hidden in the garage toolbox, then everything Daniel wrote in the letter might be true. Dangerous people, illegal money, secrets worth killing for, and possibly the real reason behind Daniel's supposed death. My phone vibrated again. I grabbed it immediately. Another message from the unknown number. "Did anyone see you reading the letter?" I typed quickly. "No." The reply came a few seconds later. "Good." I took a deep breath. I think I know where the flash drive is. Several seconds passed. Then the response came. "Don't get it yet." My heart skipped. Why not? The answer appeared slowly. Because if I'm right. The typing paused. Then the rest of the message appeared. "They may already be watching your house." A cold wave ran through my entire body. Watching the house. My house. Where Emma and Tyler were. I typed quickly. "My kids are there." The reply came instantly. "I know." My hands started shaking again. "Daniel, what is happening?" For the first time since the messages began, the answer took nearly a full minute. When it finally appeared, my stomach tightened. "The people I told you about. They believe I still have the evidence." I swallowed. "And do you?" The response was simple. "No." My chest tightened. "You hid it." My eyes moved across the screen. "You did." Another message appeared immediately after. "And if they find it before you do." The sentence stopped there. My heart pounded as I typed. "What happens then?" The reply came slowly. "They will make sure no one can expose them." I stared at the screen, my chest feeling tight. That meant something terrible. Something final. I looked up at the road ahead of me. My house was only 20 minutes away. But now that drive felt much more dangerous than before. Because if someone really was watching the house, then walking into the garage and opening that toolbox might reveal something far bigger than a hidden flash drive. It might reveal exactly how far those people were willing to go to protect their secrets. And the most frightening thought of all suddenly crossed my mind. What if the people Daniel was hiding from had already reached my family before I even realized the danger? That thought stayed in my mind the entire drive home. The road looked the same as it always did. Traffic lights changing. People walking on sidewalks. Cars passing beside me. But everything felt different now. Every car behind me made me check the mirror. Every person standing on the sidewalk made me wonder if they were watching me. Daniel's warning repeated in my head. "They may already be watching your house." I tightened my hands around the steering wheel and forced myself to breathe slowly. Maybe it was just fear. Maybe no one was actually watching. But after everything I had read in the letter, I could not ignore the possibility. 20 minutes later, I turned into our neighborhood. Everything looked calm. Children were riding bicycles on the street. A dog barked somewhere behind a fence. Nothing about the scene looked threatening. Still, my heart continued beating faster as I pulled into the driveway. I sat in the car for a moment and looked around carefully. No strange cars. No unfamiliar people. Just our quiet street. Finally, I stepped out and walked toward the house. The front door was locked, which meant Tyler had already left for his classes. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The house was completely silent. For a moment, I stood in the hallway listening. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I walked slowly through the living room and into the kitchen. Everything looked exactly the same as when I had left that morning. But the garage door stood only a few feet away. Behind it was the place I needed to check. The old toolbox. My phone vibrated in my hand again. Another message. "Are you home?" "Yes," I typed. The response came quickly. "Be careful." I walked toward the door leading into the garage. My hand rested on the handle. For a moment I hesitated. If someone really was watching the house, opening that toolbox might reveal everything. But it might also put me in danger. I opened the door slowly. The garage smelled faintly of dust and motor oil. Sunlight came through the small window near the ceiling. And there, exactly where it had always been, sat the old metal toolbox. Rusty. Heavy. Ignored for years. I stepped closer to it. My heart was beating so loudly I could hear it in my ears. The lid creaked slightly when I lifted it. Inside were the same random objects that had been there for years. Old nails. Loose screws. A broken hammer. Nothing unusual. For a second I felt a wave of disappointment. Maybe the flash drive wasn't here after all. But then I remembered something. Daniel had always been careful. If he hid something important, he would hide it deeper than that. I began moving the tools slowly, lifting each object, checking beneath them. And then I noticed something strange. The bottom of the toolbox looked slightly raised, almost like a second layer. My pulse jumped. I pushed the loose tools aside and pressed gently on the metal surface. It moved. A hidden panel. My hands started shaking as I lifted it. And there it was. A small black flash drive. Exactly like the letter described. For a moment I simply stared at it. This tiny piece of plastic held the evidence Daniel had risked his life to protect. The names. The money. The secrets. My phone vibrated again. I picked it up with my other hand. Did you find it? Yes, I typed. The response came instantly. Good. My chest tightened. What do I do now? There was a longer pause this time. Nearly 30 seconds. Then the answer appeared. You give it to the police. That seemed obvious. But something about the situation still didn't feel right. If the police were safe, I typed, you would have told them yourself. The typing dots appeared again. Then the reply came. You're right. My stomach tightened. So who do I trust? I wrote. The answer came slowly. There's one person. I waited. But the next message didn't appear immediately. Instead, something else happened. A sound came from inside the house. Footsteps. My heart jumped. I turned toward the door connecting the garage to the kitchen. Someone had just entered the house. My phone vibrated again. Another message appeared. Laura, listen carefully. But before I could read the rest of it, the door opened. Tyler stepped into the garage. He froze the moment he saw me standing there. And then his eyes moved down to the open toolbox, to the flash drive in my hand. For a moment neither of us spoke. The silence felt heavy. Then Tyler slowly stepped closer. His expression looked completely calm. Too calm. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. So you found it? My heart pounded in my chest. What are you talking about? I asked. But Tyler didn't answer immediately. Instead he looked at the flash drive again. Then back at me. And finally he spoke quietly. You should have listened to Dad. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? Tyler sighed. Then he said the one sentence I never expected to hear from my own son. He told you not to trust us. The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment. You knew about this? I whispered. Tyler nodded slowly. For a second I felt like I couldn't breathe. My own son. Standing in front of me. Talking about Daniel's warning like it was true. Then he spoke again. And this time his voice sounded colder than I had ever heard before. The people Dad was investigating. He paused. Then finished the sentence. They contacted me months ago. My heart dropped. They offered me something he couldn't. My hands felt numb. What did they offer you? Tyler looked directly into my eyes. A future. The word echoed inside the silent garage. And in that moment I finally understood the terrible truth Daniel had been trying to warn me about. The danger inside my house was never a stranger. It had been living under my roof all along. If this story made your heart race, if it left you sitting there in silence, then you already understand something most people try to ignore. Truth doesn't knock politely. It explodes. Stories like this aren't just drama. They're reality for so many people living behind closed doors. The perfect photos. The smiling holidays. The we're fine conversations. And then one day everything cracks. Maybe while you were listening, something felt familiar. The late nights, the sudden distance, the unanswered questions. That quiet voice in your head telling you something wasn't right. That voice matters. Because when the truth finally comes out, it doesn't just expose someone else's lie. It forces you to see everything clearly. And clarity can be painful. But it can also be power. If you've ever had your world flip upside down in a single moment, you're not alone. And you're not overreacting. Betrayal changes people. It changes how you trust, how you love, how you guard your heart. That's why Selenia Tales tells these stories exactly as they happen. Raw, unfiltered, and real. No softellis. No protecting the guilty. Just the moment the truth detonates. If stories like this resonate with you, make sure you subscribe to Selenia Tales so you don't miss what's coming next. Because there's always another secret waiting to surface. And if this story hit close to home, take a breath. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's choosing yourself. Sometimes it's walking away with your dignity intact. Drop a comment and tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might feel even more real than this one. This is Selenia Tales, and the next truth is closer than you think.